He packed everything: passport, green card, tax documents, even his employer's letter. Jose had done this trip a dozen times before. A 2-week visit to see his sick mother in Jalisco. Same airport, same officer smile, same welcome home. But this time, something was different. CBP took his passport, looked at the screen, then asked him to follow quietly. He ended up in the dreaded cuartito, the secondary inspection room. 4 hours. No water, no answers. Just cold stares, ticking clocks, and an eerie silence broken only by nervous footsteps. He didn't overstay. He didn't lie. He didn't commit a crime. He's been paying taxes in California for 11 years. His daughter was born in Bakersfield. He volunteers at church. He has a dog named Lucky. He's never had a DUI, never missed jury duty. And yet, he was treated like a threat. Why? Because his travel pattern raised questions. Because 179 days outside the US is suddenly suspicious. Because CBP now has more power and fewer explanations. And Jose is not alone. In the past year, thousands of lawful permanent residents, yes, people with legal green cards, have been stopped, questioned, delayed, and humiliated at airports. Some have missed connecting flights. Some have lost jobs. A few lost their status entirely. One mistake, one assumption, one officer in a bad mood can undo years of sacrifice. There's a terrifying new truth that no one tells you when you get that green card. It's permanent, in name only. The system is shifting, quietly, harshly, and without warning. You may think you're safe. That the rules are clear. That if you just follow the law, you'll be fine. But what happens when the law shifts beneath your feet? When old myths collide with new enforcement? And what if your next visit back is the last time they let you in? Jose made it through, this time. But not everyone does. And here's what they don't want you to know. He had followed every rule. Luis had been a lawful permanent resident for over 12 years. Never overstayed, never broke the law, never missed a tax deadline. Last December, he traveled to El Salvador to care for his ailing mother. He stayed 5 months and 1 week. When he returned through Houston International Airport, he expected a warm welcome back to the country he calls home. Instead, CBP officers pulled him aside. Secondary inspection, they told him, without explanation. For 4 hours, Luis sat in a cold room with no phone, no lawyer. They grilled him on his travel history, his ties to the US, his intent to remain, like a stranger trying to earn entry for the first time. He was eventually let go. But something inside him broke. This wasn't just a policy shift. It felt personal. Under the new 2025 immigration enforcement guidelines, quietly reinforced through CBP internal memos obtained by Reuters in March, the burden of proof is increasingly placed on returning residents. The rule still says 180 days is the limit before you risk being considered to have abandoned residency. But agents now examine travel patterns, employment records, even social media posts, to evaluate true intent. Green cards, once seen as shields of legal protection, are being treated like temporary permission slips. And the numbers show it. According to CBP data published in April, secondary inspections of lawful permanent residents increased by 41% in Q1 of 2025 compared to the same period in 2023. These aren't people with criminal records. Many, like Luis, have decades of contribution to American society, paying taxes, raising children, working 2 jobs. So why now? Immigration experts suggest the crackdown is less about new laws and more about how the old ones are now being enforced. As one former CBP legal advisor told CNN, "We're using existing tools more aggressively, partly because of the political pressure to appear tougher without actually changing the law." That pressure, it turns out, comes from both sides of the aisle, a rare bipartisan push to restore order after years of chaotic border policies. But the result? It's not cartel leaders or visa overstayers being caught in the dragnet. It's nurses, truck drivers, and grandmothers returning from family funerals. The betrayal isn't in the law. It's in the silent redefinition of what it means to belong. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. How a system built to welcome is now optimized to doubt, even when you've done everything right. Because what happened next to Luis was even worse. Rosa only stayed in Guatemala for 4 months. Her mother had passed. She needed time to grieve, to settle paperwork, to help her younger sister sell the family home. She had a return ticket. She kept her job in Los Angeles on unpaid leave. She filed taxes before the trip. And, most importantly, she made sure her stay would be well under the 180-day threshold. But when she landed at LAX, the officer frowned. 4 months? He repeated, flipping through her passport. What were you doing there so long? That was the moment Rosa felt it. The sudden shift from resident to suspect. CBP pulled her aside. Secondary inspection. No clear accusation. Just questions, glances, whispers, and a quiet pressure that something was wrong, even when she had done everything right. The 180-day rule has always been the unofficial boundary line. Stay under 6 months, and you're safe. Cross it, and you risk being seen as having abandoned your permanent residence. That's what most green card holders have believed for decades. But in 2025, something changed. Multiple immigration attorneys now report that *CBP is detaining or flagging travelers even for absences as short as 90 to 120 days ***, especially if those trips are frequent or tied to family obligations abroad. And for many residents, the line between compassion and suspicion is growing dangerously thin. It's no longer about how long you're gone, said Marisol Vega, an immigration lawyer in Arizona, in an interview with Bloomberg. It's about how an officer interprets your intent. That subjectivity opens the door to profiling, errors, and unfair assumptions. And the consequences are devastating. One father, returning from a 5-month visit to care for his injured son in Honduras, was placed in removal proceedings. A grandmother who visited her ailing brother in the Philippines for 4 months was warned that her next trip could cost her green card. Neither broke the law, but both were treated like liabilities. The problem isn't just the rules, it's how they're being applied. Green card holders now live in a state of ambiguity, legal, but always under silent review. Your case isn't decided by a judge. It can be shaped by one officer's mood or a vague suspicion that your ties to the U.S. are weak, despite years, even decades, of work, taxes, family, and contribution. And once flagged, you enter a shadow zone. No formal charge, no automatic notice, just heightened scrutiny every time you travel. A system of quiet punishment without clear defense. For Rosa, it was 4 hours in a cold room, trying to explain why love for her family didn't mean disloyalty to the U.S. She was released. But now, every flight home comes with a silent fear. What if next time, they don't let her back in? And for thousands of others just like her, the line between safe and deportable keeps getting blurrier. But this uncertainty is only part of a deeper story. He wasn't a criminal. He never lied on an immigration form. He never broke any law. But Carlos lost his green card. Not at the border, not in court, but through a quiet piece of paper called Form I-407, a form he says he never even meant to sign. Carlos had returned from a 6-month trip to Mexico, where he had cared for his father in his final days. At the airport, he was flagged for secondary inspection. An officer questioned him for over an hour, asking about how long he had been gone, what he did for work, and how often he traveled. Then came the form. They said, if you sign this, everything will be easier, Carlos remembers. I was exhausted. I thought it was routine. I didn't know I was giving up my status. That's the power of Form I-407, the official record of abandonment of lawful permanent resident status. Once signed, even accidentally, it's incredibly hard to reverse. No trial, no hearing, just one document, and your legal life in America is over. What makes it worse? Carlos had been fully compliant with his taxes. He had filed every year with the IRS, reported his foreign income, and even sought advice from a CPA before his trip. But none of that mattered. Because green card holders aren't just judged by criminal records, they're judged by patterns, paperwork, and perceived abandonment. And sometimes, compliance works against them. According to a 2024 report by the National Immigration Forum, a growing number of residents are being flagged for inconsistencies between IRS filings and travel history, In some cases, filing taxes from abroad raises red flags, even if it's legal. In others, the lack of US-based income during travel is seen as proof of intent to leave. It's a trap, said immigration attorney Danielle Liu in an NPR segment this year. You do what's right with the IRS, and it still gets used against you by immigration. That's the disconnect. And it's not just Carlos. There are dozens of similar cases, people who took time off for family, health, or work abroad, filed their taxes honestly, and returned to find themselves under suspicion. Some were offered Form I-407 under pressure. Others were simply told their residency was no longer valid due to administrative reasons. No arrest, no appeal, just administrative loss. For working-class immigrants, especially Latinos and Asians, this creates a chilling effect. A system that says, even if you do everything legally, one wrong signature, one misinterpreted trip, one mismatched tax form, and it could all disappear. Carlos now lives in legal limbo. No green card, no clear path to recovery. Just a stack of documents that say, you followed the rules, but we don't believe you. And what comes next isn't about paperwork, it's about trust being broken at the core. Maria never used to think much about citizenship. For 17 years, her green card had been enough. She worked as a home health aide, raised 2 kids, paid taxes, and volunteered at her church in San Diego. America was home, even if the paperwork said she wasn't fully American. Then came the flight back from El Salvador. It was a quick trip. Her sister had been diagnosed with cancer, and Maria flew down for just 3 weeks to help her through her first round of chemo. But at the airport in Houston, she was pulled aside for a routine check. 4 hours later, she walked out, shaken, silent, and different. I realized something that day, she said later. They could have taken everything. My job, my home, my future, just because someone didn't like my answers. That moment changed everything. She enrolled in a citizenship prep class the very next week. And not because she wanted to vote. Not because she wanted to carry a blue passport. But because she was tired of the fear, of the unpredictability, of the weight of being permanent, but never truly protected. This is the untold truth for millions of green card holders in 2025. They are legal, but not secure. One long trip, one confusing form, one officer's bad day, and everything they've built could crumble. That's not just policy, that's trauma. According to the Migration Policy Institute, naturalization applications have surged 37% in the past year, with the majority citing permanent safety as their main reason. Not political rights, not benefits, just peace of mind. For many, it's not a matter of if, but when. Marcos, a construction worker in Phoenix, put it simply, every time I fly, I hug my wife like I might not come back. That's not how anyone should live. Citizenship isn't a reward, it's a shield. A fragile, hard-earned, deeply personal protection against a system that no longer guarantees stability for residents. It doesn't make someone more deserving. It just gives them a line of defense. But beyond the paperwork, something deeper is happening. Immigrants across the country are starting to reflect, not just on their legal status, but on what it really means to belong. They're asking, how much do I have to prove? How many years must I stay quiet, work hard, play by the rules, before I'm seen as one of us? There's no easy answer, but for Maria, and many like her, citizenship isn't just about escaping fear. It's about reclaiming dignity, about building a future where the rules don't shift overnight, where a knock at the airport doesn't feel like the end of everything. And maybe, just maybe, that hope is where healing begins. Somewhere between the terminals and the holding rooms, the American dream got smaller. Not with one big policy change, not with a headline, but slowly, through moments that didn't make the news. A mother being questioned after a funeral trip. A worker pulled aside after 2 decades of taxes. A student returning from study abroad, treated like a stranger. One by one, those moments piled up, until what was once called permanent started to feel painfully temporary. Green cards were meant to mean something. Stability, trust, a promise that if you did the right thing, followed the law, paid your dues, kept your head down, you'd be safe. You'd belong. But now, even those who did everything right are looking over their shoulders. They're not criminals. They're not trying to cheat the system. They are the system. They drive the trucks, clean the hospitals, build the homes. And yet, at any moment, a knock, a question, a form, can unravel their entire life. This isn't fear of punishment. It's fear of randomness. And fear like that changes people. It makes them quieter, less willing to speak up when something's wrong. It makes them settle for less, not just in work, but in dignity. It shrinks their idea of what's possible. And isn't that the opposite of what the American dream was supposed to be? This country was never perfect. But it made a promise, that if you worked hard, you could build something real. Something lasting, something yours. Now, many are asking, was that promise ever meant for us? The worst part isn't just losing rights. It's losing faith. Faith that the rules will apply equally. That effort will be enough. That legal status means legal protection. Maybe that's the deepest wound of all, not the fear itself, but the realization that you've been living inside a story that no longer believes in you. And so, people are adapting. Some rush toward citizenship, hoping to find shelter in paperwork. Others prepare for the worst, even when they've done nothing wrong. But all are carrying the weight of uncertainty, a quiet, constant question mark under their skin. This isn't just about policy anymore. It's about the emotional cost of never feeling safe in the place you call home. And if that's the new reality, then what does it mean to belong? Who gets to live without fear, and who only gets to visit it, for a while? That question remains.